You have created a startup brand that is relevant and loved, and we have like, what, 200 million subscribers now, something like that. So you made very early, very bold bets, right? We barely had $10 million in the bank, and he was, like building a brand strategy with IPL. So thinking on how to go about building brand and brand ambassadors.
Yeah, look, I think for us, first of all, we are very, very sure that we didn't want to go and do brand marketing until we had enough money to actually make a dent. Because actually putting a small budget into IPL is worse than putting no budget at all. You'd rather not advertise, and unless you're making a dent. So you have to have a certain viable amount. It's like an escape velocity, right? If you're not reaching that amount, then don't do it at all. So until we got to that amount, we stuck to digital marketing and digital marketing alone. And so we are very tactical, very like data-driven digital marketing. When we saw that digital marketing efficiencies were declining and we were not getting the same bang for a buck that we were getting before, then we started looking at brand building as a way to hypercharge our digital efficiency again. And I was actually very against brand marketing because I found these TV ads and all a waste of time. And, I said that for me, I was like an engineer running a data-driven company, and I was like, if I can't measure it, I'm not doing it. And you can't measure TV spends, even today's measurements and all are very poor. If you can find the next company that can attribute TV spends to like revenue, that will be way larger than your Dream 11 returns. But
most likely you and Akrit will find it and let me invest, please.
Yeah, maybe AI will figure it out at some point. But we also do believe in a culture of experimentation. And so we let our marketing team run the first campaign when we could afford it, and with a strong hypothesis of helping digital efficiency. And it actually worked. But the interesting part was how we approached it. Was we said, let's not go out there and sell, yeah. Ek aur bikao, like, you go out there and say, buy my product, here's my product, itne ka hai, ya fir itna discounting hai, and like, this is what everyone does. And so we said, we really need to reach out to the customer and talk to them about what problem are we solving for them. Why should they care? IPL is a sea of ads, right? And if you want this little boat to stand out, then why should they care? And so we really thought about a brand ambassador. And we said, who's the voice? And at that time, it was, of course, everyone knows and remembers Dhoni. But at that time, Dhoni was very clearly known to be one of the only players I can think of who had a place in the Indian cricket team, not because of his batting and keeping alone. It was because of his captaincy. People wanted him to be in the team because the other players would play better when he is around, right? And we said that this is the persona of fantasy sports. You want someone who can say that, look, I can choose players and I can predict who will play better and I will make you win. And then we wanted a figure that you can trust, that's dependable, because there was a lot of regulatory questions around fantasy sports when we were running. And we had gotten all the legal approvals from the Supreme Court of India. But in the mindset, perception was still that, is this okay, is this not okay? So you needed an ambassador that you can trust. And today in India, it's very true. Huh? You get an ambassador, that trust immediately rubs off on your brand. So if you're getting Ranveer Singh, you need to make sure that you're trying to portray like an energetic brand, and that's what you want to do. If you want to get Amitabh Bachchan, you're trying to solve for trust.
Harsh from day one had a very different compensation philosophy, and again something that the board gasps. I want you to talk to the early days, right? When you're making profit, when you're a big brand, you get away with a lot as a CEO. But when you're early days, right? And even back then, when he had raised like $5 million, he had a very different philosophy to how he wanted to build his company culture, and compensation is only one part of it, right? That, like any other topic, is up to you. If you have a deep opinion about something, how do you take people along, be that be your board or anybody else? But I think, it's important to talk about compensation philosophy, not just for your team, which you've always batted for them hard with the board, but also, many times even for himself, just letting the board say, I'll do the right thing for you, right? There are two parts to it. You bat for your team, but not as much for yourself, right? So.
Yeah, absolutely. Look, even today, it's a very difficult discussion with our board, because even if we are, as a company, doing okay, our investors are coming in from companies that are having layoffs, where they are cutting salaries, where they are, all kinds of stuff is going on. Everyone knows that in the room. And even this appraisal, we're going to go in there and recommend an appraisal for our team. And I know the first reaction is going to be that, how can you give appraisals in this environment, right? I think we've been very, very fortunate to have a company where where our people are truly our assets. I know a lot of people say that, right? Our people are our assets. But in our case, it's actually true, because we have no inventory, no logistics, no delivery, no warehousing, no actual physical product. We literally don't have an asset in the company. We have 2 floors in 1 BKC of our people, and that's Dream 11. That's it. We don't exist outside of that. And apart from the 180 million cell phones in the country. But our people, honestly, are our greatest asset, and that's what we want to make sure we take care of the most. Now, it's, we face this problem a lot, that when you're doing well, especially now, it's very easy to afford to pay more. It's easier than it was before. And when you're starting out, it's very difficult to pay. So I think we just came up with a philosophy saying that we don't want all this bell curve stuff, and what is right appraisal? Is 20% okay? Is 40% okay? Is 10% okay? How do you ever answer that? There's no answer. So our compensation philosophy was that let's get into the minds of the person who's getting compensated, right? All that matters to them is, if anyone went to MBA, right? Like if you remember, BATNA, right? Best alternative to a negotiated agreement. Some of that MBA stuff is at least useful, like 5%. If you actually think about it, it doesn't matter if someone's done amazingly well and you give them like a 50% appraisal. And you're like, oh, I've given you the whole world, right? If they have an offer letter of 100% more from someone else, then it doesn't matter, right? If you give them 10% appraisal or keep them at the same salary and they cannot get a job anywhere else in the market, then that's a great offer. So very early on, we decided our compensation will be purely based on market benchmarking. It doesn't matter if there's 2 people in the team and they both done the same job, and one person gets like a 50% appraisal and one person gets a 5% appraisal. We will benchmark to market. And so our philosophy till today is that we will get market data from actual companies that are comparable to our scale or size, or basically where we might lose talent to, or we want to get talent from. We get data from them. There are many agencies that can provide you this data. We have our talent acquisition team that's in the field the whole time that gives us separate data that we cross-check and verify. And finally, we have a board which also helps us to verify whether these ranges are right. And based on those ranges, we choose a 90th percentile. That we say that, look, we want to be a top paymaster. We want to pay top of market. So we don't want 99th percentile, because then you tend to break the market, and that's a vicious circle. We want to be a 90th percentile, because if you're also here to get paid the highest in the market, then you're in the wrong company. Because then you're here just for the compensation, then you're a mercenary. And we'll also lose you to the next 5, 10%, 20% hike. So if you're here, we want to make sure that we are paying 90th percentile of the market. We give you ESOPs. So 100% of our employees have ESOPs. And sometimes actually, when they're joining and they're like, okay, I'll give you a 50 lakh salary with a 50 lakh ESOPs. And they're like, can you give me 60 lakh salary with 0 ESOPs? And we have to actually force them. No, you have to take this 50 lakh. We might even negotiate 60 lakh if the market benchmarks are right. 60 lakh of salary, but you have to take the 50 lakh of ESOPs. And that we found to be amazing at retention. Because just like our users, our employees are the same. Our company is built on retention, not on acquisition. Right? And that goes more for your employees.
A lot of founders, as they scale, you get different kind of investors naturally, right? Your Series A investors, your Series F investors are different, right? But you have navigated these different temperaments. They are all different temperaments, right? And most founders kind of flounder on that. 3 things for others to learn from that.
Keep growing, it kind of solves a lot of stuff. Become profitable, right? On a more serious note, I think that we also have to understand the other side, right? Which took me some time to understand even now. Like, we had VCs where Vani had come in and she actually helped us build the business, right? So she was there talking about, like, our board meetings used to be equally about product and technology and marketing as it were about our financials and our P&L and our MS. But I think it didn't come naturally. We got to Series D, we had a strategic investor. In our Series E, we had hedge funds come in. And I think it's honestly a big learning curve because you just expect, honestly, I expected everyone to be like Vani, like, oh, we'll talk about product, tech, marketing, and you'll help me build the company. But as we scaled up in our investors, it became more and more and more about financials only. Like, you go figure out the product, tech, and whatever you have to do to deliver the financials to us. And I think that honestly took some time for me to recalibrate. So it is a big learning. And today, we have been able to get our board to say that, look, financials are fine, but we want your advice. And I think if you talk to your board about what you want, most board members are like more than happy to help. But I think if you ask them what they want, they'll say, we want your financials. That's it. But I think they have so much more to offer. And each one you need to understand their history, right? Like Vani's history as an entrepreneur. So I used to go to her, I think until our last series, no, even like 2 years ago, Vani was still interviewing CXOs for me. I think each investor comes with their pros and cons. You can't expect the same thing from every investor. And that took me some time to figure out, and I think that we're better off now in dealing with each one. Also, one other thing is that if you're stepping on that treadmill and going to raise money, then you're never going to go from a walk to a jog to a sprint and back down. You just unfortunately are going to keep going unless your current investors never sell. So I think that's a big learning of how to handle different investors, that all the new investors come in, it is your obligation to get them their returns and make money for them.
Harsh, I'm really incredibly proud of your leadership journey first and foremost, and how I've seen you grow as a leader and a person.